Hello and welcome to another episode of Sexual Confidence on Tap with Shannon, Ethridge, and friends, where I continue with my friends Julie Seibert and Reverend Angie McCarty in our Summer Lovin series. So, give them a beauty queen wave. There you go. So we're going to talk about kissing today, kissing like lovers do. But before we dive into that topic, ladies, I feel like it's only appropriate for us to pause and take a moment to honor a great iconic legend that we lost just this week. I find it so ironic that we're doing this Summer Lovin series and the one who sang that song left this earth this week because of breast cancer.
Right.
So I remember Olivia Newton-John as being a class act, and personally I think that having her in my life growing up, it was, I don't remember her being like, slutty or salacious. And I hate to even use those words because they sound so judgmental. I'm just simply saying she was liberating in a really excellent way, in my opinion. I loved Grease. I loved her in anything that she did, Xanadu and all of those. I loved her music. And I think that if I remember correctly, her song "Have You Never Been Mellow" was kind of my way of getting in touch with I do have an introverted side, believe it or not. It helped me know that it was okay to feel a little bit melancholy and a little bit withdrawn alone in my room with my record player. So what kind of impact did Olivia Newton-John have on you ladies? Was she as iconic in your mind as she was in mine?
Yes, I think that she is the one that I would attribute my love of musical theater to and musical movies, because I wanted to be her and I wanted to wear the big long poodle skirts like her. And I think there's always this side of me too that wanted to date the bad boy, but I never did. I was that straight-laced girl, and somehow the movie Grease kind of gave me permission to at least consider coming out of that. Also, best breakup song ever from that movie is "Hopelessly Devoted to You." So I can remember, middle school, high school, every breakup, sitting in my room, listening to that song over and over again and just crying, getting the good cry out, and then moving on.
Yeah, I would agree. I think she's a really class act. And I think that she was a class act in her younger years and a class act as she grew older and had to face very difficult, hard battles. And I too loved Grease. I have always said that I could be in the worst mood, and if I watch Grease, I'm better. It is the right mix. It is the right mix of dorky and encouraging. And, when you think about it, it's a movie about high school made with a bunch of people who were in their late 20s. Stockard Channing was like 27 when the movie was made, but I just think she was such a bright spot in that movie, Olivia Newton-John. And I love that throughout her life, she really just was a voice of hope and encouragement and uplifting, and just a special soul. And so it's sad that we lost her, but so encouraging what she brought to so many.
Yeah, I don't recall her name ever being associated with a scandal or negativity or
no.
She was a pleasant person and a positive influence on us all. Right. So thank you, Olivia Newton-John, for imparting all that you did to all of us ladies who grew up listening to your music and watching your movies. We will probably continue to do that just because we love it. We just love it. So, okay, ladies, challenge question. Do you remember your first kiss?
Like it was yesterday. Honestly, it wasn't.
Okay, so do tell.
I could go back to this in a heartbeat. Okay,
tell it all.
So I feel like what are the podcast rules? Can I say the guy's name, or should he be John Smith?
I intend to say his name when it's my turn. So go for it.
So Drew. Not Andrew, not Andy. Drew.
Okay, Drew.
We were in show choir together.
I bet.
And we had been going out for like 3 months and hadn't kissed. I was in the 7th grade. He was in the 8th grade, right? And one day after school, by his locker, he kissed me. And
Wow.
and I can so vividly remember that I woke up the next morning thinking, did that just happen? Like it
Aw.
was a seismic shift in my being.
So were there
first kiss.
people around? What was set the setting
Okay.
a little? Were there anybody
I'm so
around?
glad you asked, and it's weird that you did, and we didn't prep this at all because you're hearing this story for the first time. Okay,
Right.
so Jessica and Lynn were behind the lockers where he kissed me. This was outside.
Okay.
And they, of course, told everybody about it the next day. So everybody knew that Drew and Angie had kissed. So fast forward like 40 years. And when Jonathan and I, right? I know Jonathan and I start dating, and he starts putting me on his Facebook page. And my Facebook name is Angie Bass McCarty.
Okay.
My maiden name, Bass. There's a woman who works at Church of the Resurrection, right? The largest church ever in United Methodism, who says, is that Angie Bass from Arizona? And I was living in Arizona at the time. It was
Okay.
Lynn.
Oh
Lynn
my
behind
gosh.
the locker, Lynn. So now I work at the same church and have had many, many conversations with Lynn behind the locker, Lynn, and I love her. She's wonderful.
Wow.
And last February or February this year, I don't know, time has no meaning. I went back to Arizona for a reunion of that show choir group. And the kids that went on to high school and were in speech and debate and drama, and Drew was there, and it was so fun to talk to him, and there was no because we're both married, and it was just fun to revisit that. And I actually had his 8th grade school picture still, and I gave it to him. I didn't need it anymore. And
I didn't need it anymore.
I didn't need it anymore. You know, I took it out from underneath my pillow.
Right. After it sat on your like nightside table.
Yeah.
For years,
yeah, for sure.
Put it under
I'm
the pillow,
super healthy like that. No, I gave it to him, and he was really grateful because he didn't have any pictures of himself from that era. So his kids had never seen him back then. So
see, I want to know the story behind that. Why does he not have any pictures?
Sad.
I thought of that.
Oh goodness.
So, you know, the moral of that story is never burn your bridges, because you don't know 40 years later who's going to come back into your life at your place of business.
That's
so
true.
Yeah.
So true. Julie, how about you?
There's
Did
my
you
story.
first kiss?
Beat that.
Big shoes to fill now.
I cannot beat that, Angie. And my mind is flashing back to being like 12 years old and playing spin the bottle and truth and dare and all that. So I would say my first like real kiss would have been the guy I dated in high school for a short time. But I don't remember anything really stellar about it. So I'm not going to say his name, but he was a nice enough guy. But yeah, my first kiss doesn't stand out like that. I can think of several kisses since then that I could point to, but not my first doesn't stand out. So I can't top Angie's story and Drew and Lynn behind the locker.
No, I do want to clarify, though, not to throw Drew under the bus, that my first kiss with my husband just blows all of that
Oh, there we
out of
go.
the water. I mean,
Okay.
yeah, like the best kiss ever in my entire life.
I
was
love
kissing
that.
Jonathan Bell for the
So you
first
still-
time.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Still get that surreal feeling when Jonathan kisses you.
Every single time. I'm
love
not kidding. It's
I love that.
amazing.
That is nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would also have
Shannon?
to say that Charlie his kisses are off the charts better than anybody that I've ever kissed. But my first kiss was under duress. Truth or dare game in the back of the school bus. Other kids building a wall between the school bus driver's eyesight and what was going on in the back seat. but I did have a little bit of a crush on Johnny Watson was his name. And I
Or
remember
even
I
last
actually-
names. Okay.
I remember the feeling of how the kiss felt, like having a tongue in your mouth. And it was a little weird when I was in the 6th grade, I think. But I distinctly remember though the following year in 7th grade when I actually had my first real reciprocal boyfriend and how different that felt. That wasn't awkward at all. And his name was Lance.
Right.
And I actually saw him at a reunion not too long ago. And I had an opportunity to thank him for being such a sweet first boyfriend experience because there was nothing inappropriate about it. It was 2 7th graders who were just crushing on each other big time. We had matching shirts. We walked each other to class. But the following year, I told him that following year, 8th grade, was when my uncles got very inappropriate with me. And I said, if that had been my first like kissing experience or type of thing, that would have scarred me much deeper. But because I had that experience with Lance to kind of draw from about, who I really am and what I really want and deserve and all that kind of stuff, I just think that it made me a stronger person. I think that anytime we can look in our rearview mirror at the things that we've experienced in life and recognize that some of the most innocent, natural, organic experiences of our life actually made us stronger in hindsight. I just love how God can show us that, can just reframe things and be like, you know what? I allowed that for a reason. So
for sure. Definitely.
Let's dive into heating things up with kissing like lovers do. I want to say that I have identified the one thing that will make a big difference in how I perceive the kiss. If it's a positive kiss or if it's just like an obligatory kiss or whatever, is the speed. That when Charlie slows down and takes his time and I don't feel like he's in a rush and I actually have the opportunity to feel his breath on my upper lip and that makes me melt. How about y'all? What is the one element that you think really makes a difference for you in how you enjoy that kiss or not?
I would piggyback on that, like, and say that it's reciprocal. So like there's that back and forth. So like it's really clear you both want to be there. Like that's kind of the magic space for me. It's, because sometimes, I mean, let's face it, like sometimes like one person's head space is in it, like, and the other person isn't. So I just think it's real special and tender when you're both really intentional and it's kind of that kissing back and forth is going on. Yeah.
And of course, I'll add to both of you. For me, the speed and the tenderness and mutuality of it, I would describe as having the ability to feel Jonathan's lips and to really be present in that space to the point where I am sensing his lips on mine. Now, we should also acknowledge that there is definitely a time for the peck. And if I have to choose between no kiss at all before he runs out the door and a quick little peck, I want the peck.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Pecks have their place.
Yes.
Pecks have their place. Just sounds
like a meme.
Sounds like a sticker.
That sounds like that could morph into something else. Just saying.
I really appreciate kissing at the beginning of the day and also at the end of the day. And being able to count on that and knowing that no matter what happens during the day, when we lay down in bed, there's going to be that kiss before we say goodnight.
Yeah, it's like bookends.
Yes.
Bookends on the day. Yeah.
I like that.
And
kind of like a sunrise and a sunset. They both have their place and both are beautiful. And I like that, sealing the day and starting the day and sealing the day with a kiss.
Yep.
And choosing me at the beginning of the day and the end of the day is also what that communicates to me.
I like that. I like that a lot. one of the things that I encourage couples to experiment with when kissing is not a regular part of their repertoire, and maybe, I mean, it's really hard to coach a couple into really great vibrant sex when great vibrant kissing isn't happening. I just feel as if that is such
Right.
a necessary part of organic foreplay, but sometimes couples just have not found their kissing groove, and it's usually because one of them has a secret complaint that maybe they've never found the courage to verbalize for fear of hurting their mate's feelings. I would rather my mate tell me that I'm doing something that is not so great to them than to keep it a secret from me to not hurt my feelings, because then they're not going to want to kiss me. So,
Right.
called the mirroring kiss, which basically, I mean, I think that I've seen this in some movies where girls practice kissing on a mirror just to see what they look like when they're kissing someone. But you don't kiss a mirror. You kiss your partner and you tell them, only mirror back to me exactly what I'm doing. So don't stick your tongue out until I stick my tongue out, and only go as far as I go. And the rate, the speed, the pressure, the what's the word that I'm looking for? The intensity of like, they have to
Yeah.
match that.
Yeah.
And the wetness. I think that
Yeah.
some people just find an excess of saliva just too distasteful, and when they feel like they have to pause and wipe their face off, that's
Right.
not such a great vibe. But again, you have to tell your mate
Right.
that. You have to tell them that you like, or that you
Uh-huh.
prefer a drier kiss, or somewhere in the middle of a dry kiss and a wet kiss.
Mhm.
Well, and the thing I would say too about the to kind of build on what you're saying, Shannon, on the I think sometimes it's good to communicate too that it's okay to have a passionate kiss. Like sometimes people misread that. So like being able to say to your spouse, sometimes I just want a passionate kiss, or I want to passionately kiss you. It doesn't mean I'm trying to get you into the bedroom. It doesn't mean I'm trying to interrupt what you're doing right now. It can be in and of itself an expression of, I love you. I desire you. I'm not saying this has to go someplace right now, but this is how, I mean, let's, because face it, our spouse is the only one that we have those kinds of passionate, deep kisses with. So I think sometimes, I know with my husband, sometimes I've had to clarify because he's interpreted my passionate kiss as that I want something more right then. And I have to sometimes say, no, it's just, I'm just expressing how I feel. And it can be its own thing right now. This
It's a
own
rain check.
self-contained. The rain check.
It's foreplay for later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a promissory note.
Exactly. There you go. Let's talk about moving beyond. I mean, we're insinuating that kisses are always on the lips. Not
right.
true. When you read Song of
Not
Solomon,
true.
it's got some pretty salacious kisses on other body parts. I frequently quote that scripture. I think it's a collection of scriptures that I put in The Sexually Confident Wife. I delight to sit in my lover's shade. His fruit is sweet to my taste. Come and blow on my garden that its fragrance may spread abroad. Angie, as a biblical scholar, do you agree that those are references to genitalia and oral stimulation?
Well, it would be hard pressed to call me a biblical scholar. Pastor does not equal biblical scholar,
No.
but I do read a lot about Song of Solomon because it's usually not included in the church's teachings about sexuality, because there's very good scholarly evidence that these are not two people who were married, that they were not betrothed, that this is, I mean, now you understand that in biblical interpretation, it's a spectrum, right?
Right.
So there are going to be
There's
people who
different
say that
interpretation.
no,
Yeah.
they were married, or about Song of Solomon, especially, that this is 100% an allegory,
Right.
about Christ's passion for the church,
Yeah.
or God's passion for God's people. But on the other side, there is good evidence that this is all about physical passion. And yes, I completely agree with you, Shannon. I am always hesitant to say when we read something in scripture that it correlates 100% with our culture and our activity in culture. But I would say that that kissing on other parts of the body, especially genitalia through oral sex, that that is very healthy between consenting partners.
And that's the key word,
And
consenting, right there.
consenting.
Right.
Right.
Well, and I would say too that like even before we get to the genitalia, like if we can argue that it's okay to kiss our spouse's neck or to kiss, there's a lot of erogenous zones where the use of your mouth and your tongue are a huge turn on for both husbands and wives. And so I think there's no arbitrary line. Like it's very hard to argue like, okay, it's fine for a husband to kiss his wife's breast, but then he can't kiss her vagina and can't. So I am in the camp of the back to the consenting, as long as these are two people, a husband and wife, who find that arousing and pleasurable and are mutual with that, then I think, yeah. I think Song of Songs very much references oral sex.
And I think that it's
so
safe
the
to
key
say
is
that
the key is the communication. The key is the communication. Like how well are you communicating to your spouse what turns you on? I had a good friend who it was not arousing to her to have her neck kissed. And so she had to communicate that to her husband. For some reason, that was more of a turnoff to her.
it can be ticklish.
But it just it just has to do with like good communication, and then like the type of kissing and touching. So like a light with the tongue may be a huge turn on, or it may be ticklish. It may be like, oh, that's just like freaking me out. So good communication. What were you going to say, Shannon?
Well, I already lost that, but what I was going to say, I was actually just thinking about how I love when we're riding down the road in the car and we're holding hands, and every once in a while Charlie will pick up my hand and put it to his mouth and like just kiss my
super sexy.
Or put his mouth around my finger and super sexy. Yeah. And it's like,
I think both. I think husbands and wives can both speak to that the whole like what you do with your mouth, and really there's science behind this. This is why babies put stuff in their mouth.
Yes.
Like our mouth, there's a whole science behind this, why our mouth, like there's so many nerve endings and ways that we perceive our world through our mouth. And that's as true in a sexual context with a husband and wife in a marriage, that kind of, there's a lot going on there.
I think
Shannon, do you remember?
So I think that it's safe for us to say that there is nothing forbidding any type of oral, sexual, intimate, arousing activity in marriage. There's nothing forbidding that, because there are some people who believe that oral sex is of the devil and that this is a lustful thing that they do in pornography and should never be allowed in the marriage bed. And I completely and wholeheartedly disagree. And I can tell by you shaking your ball cap there that you would concur, Angie.
I concur. I also want to add, I remember, Shannon, when you and I were doing education in the purity movement, that we used James Dobson's 12 steps to intimacy, or the 12 stages of intimacy, which start with hand-to-hand contact, and then there's face-to-face contact, and it moves to genital contact. And there was
also one of them.
Mouth to genital was one of them. And so the whole point of the activity is, where are you going to stop before you're married? And I'm not surprised, because not much surprises me anymore, but there's this camp of thinking that only intercourse is what should be saved for marriage. My thought about that it has to do with the intimacy of mouth to genital contact. You can't tell me that that is less intimate than genital to genital contact.
Right. It's
So
more
as I
intimate.
think about,
Yeah.
it is in so many ways. Yeah, I mean, what we do with our face and our mouth is almost more vulnerable than.
Well, particularly if you think about for a husband, I mean, that like you have to.
I think it
like,
goes
really,
both ways. I think
It
I think
does
that
go
women
both
can be
ways.
just
No,
as
I
freaked
love
out
it.
about giving
right, but I'm
sex as
just
a man
for
could be.
some. Yeah, but no, I think for some men, like the fact of like, just the fear of like pain, is she gonna like clench down, that sort of thing. So that's what I was talking about. Like, but I think that like, yeah, it's a hugely vulnerable place for both a woman and a man, like to be that vulnerable. And yeah, I'm in the camp of that oral sex is sex. I am.
Well, that's I believe that way back in the Clinton and Monica Lewinsky era. Like, I'm sorry, but that's sex. You call it oral sex for a reason. But
and let's put out there that that women who struggle to orgasm during sex, during intercourse, this will get you there.
It is often the magic, if he knows what he's doing, but a man does have to know what he's doing. So I have to kind of toss in a little nugget here for the person who's listening to this and thinking there is no way that I could ever be comfortable with my mate putting their face between my legs. I would simply say, just because it's not forbidden in scripture, we're not saying that it's prescribed in scripture either. I think that there's definitely freedom in the marriage bed to do what brings you life and pleasure and joy. And if that doesn't, we understand that, and that's okay. But on the flip side of that coin, I would also say, please consider coming to one of my workshops or doing some one-on-one with some sort of counselor or coach somewhere, because that represents something to you. That representation could change. I've seen it happen over and over with people, that they assume that the way that they have always felt about something is the way that they're always going to feel about something. But when you unravel what it represents to them and why and what that's rooted in, it's very, very different. For example, it was a woman who was at a workshop several years ago, and she had been sexually abused at a very young age by a very old man. And she distinctly remembers the smell. Well, she was like 4 or 5. Like, nobody had taught her to cleanse down there, and anything that you don't cleanse is going to develop a little bit of a smell. And so she just had it stuck in her head, I stink, and no one should want to be down there. And so she brought that notion into marriage, and her husband had tried to tell her, if you've just gotten out of the shower, I don't find it unpleasant in the least. And so she had to get that message out of her own head and relax and receive. And now she loves oral sex. And so it's so cool to see people evolve into someone who can receive what I believe is your birthright. I believe that it is our birthright to receive all the sexual pleasure that our bodies are capable of experiencing, and receiving that in a safe, life-giving marriage relationship is like off the charts. God's greatest gift to us, in my opinion, next to salvation, of course.
Well, and I would say too that like it is so encouraging, Shannon, that you say that people can change their mind about something, and they can change their narrative and their framework and their context of how they always saw something, that they can create a new narrative, a healthier narrative. And I remember a friend, back to this kissing, like even like a passionate kiss. I know we've been talking about oral sex, but some people would say, well, my spouse and I, we never passionately kiss. We just don't do that. And I remember a friend saying to me once, she said, you know why people say they're not huggers? They don't hug. Like, so meaning like sometimes we have to like break through the comfort zone a little to like, so if you say we never passionately kiss, well, maybe if you would passionately kiss more, like it would change that narrative. so same thing when someone says, oh, I'm not a hugger. It's like, I always want to know the story behind the story. So if someone would just say like, oh, we don't ever, kiss passionately, I'd kind of want to know, what is that? What's the story behind that? Like, is it because you're uncomfortable, you're nervous, you're afraid you're going to do it wrong? Or is there a backstory, like from a past relationship or an abuse situation? Like, try to like get to the heart of, because I think we three agree there's something amazingly powerful about that ability to kiss passionately and to experience that and to receive it.
Yeah.
Not just to be able to give that to your spouse, but also to receive that.
To reciprocate that energy. Absolutely.
To reciprocate. Yeah.
And 3 things come to my mind as we were just on the topic of hygiene a little bit. I know that I've worked with people who say that they don't like kissing their mate because they're smokers. There are those that don't like kissing their mate because they have horrible coffee breath. And there are those that don't like kissing their mate because their oral hygiene is just really not great. Yeah. So I think that probably a good way to wrap up this conversation is a reminder that if what you want and what you crave is an exchange of positive vibes and energy through kissing, through oral intimacy, hygiene is a must, because right above our mouth is our nose. And when the nose is under attack and feels like there's an offense happening, your mouth is not going to like totally press in and relax and totally get into it. So there's a reason that they make mouthwash and Altoids and toothbrushes and toothpaste and on the same
feminine wash and feminine sprays. And
exactly.
Yeah, well, and it's not just feminine. I mean, I'm sure there's the male version too, or there should be.
Generally speaking, like, come to bed clean, or like the more you take care of, and I think it just shows good consideration for your spouse. So if we start getting really laxed about those things, like think about, like, this is the person I cherish and I want to be close to. So if you both can come to it with that kind of consideration, and I just think it lowers our inhibitions too. When we have
you're more confident when you're clean.
You're more confident when you're clean. When your mouth is clean, when you smell good, when your body is clean. Now, I'm not saying there aren't times when you have wild, crazy, sweaty sex when you just just seize the moment.
That's a different,
but I also
different topic for another day.
That's a different topic for another day. But I do think there's a lot to be said for good hygiene and what that does for our intimacy. Yeah.
And I would also include the whole pubic hair thing. If you want your mate to eat a picnic on your lawn, mow the grass. That's all I'm gonna say about that.
That's all you're gonna say? You got nothing else? Nothing more?
I will add wax the grass. And if you want to surprise someone, wax it down to a landing strip.
Ooh. I
did the Brazilian wax thing just because I had people ask me about it. So I'm like, well, I'll go do it and then I'll blog about it. So I did. And because I was with some friends once and a married couple, and they were saying, we were out like in a social setting, and we were talking about Brazilian waxes, and her husband happened to walk up at that time, and he was like, so hot. Like, for him, it was like a huge turn on. Now, I've heard other people say, I want to be with a woman. I don't want like the no hair thing. That's like a turn off for me, whatever. But I would say that good grooming can help lower those inhibitions for both husbands and wives. Good grooming both ways.
So let's clarify for those of your listeners who might not know what a Brazilian is, and it's not a common thing to talk about. So a Brazilian is all hair off, labia included, and even back to the anus too. And I have had that done many times, and it has been a big turn on for both of us.
Things feel different. Yeah.
Right. And for me, I never wanted to go completely bare in front because I wanted to feel like a mature
Right.
woman. And so when I
Yeah.
said landing strip, that's like
Yeah.
being just a little strip down the middle.
Yeah.
So just clarify that.
I did when I had my Brazilian done. I used it as an opportunity. The journalist in me asked the gal all kinds of questions,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it was fascinating to hear like different kinds of clients she gets and stuff. But anyway, we're off
Yeah.
topic a little bit.
We
Sorry about
are.
that.
Well,
Let me
I
just
just
say
have
that
to
sometimes-
say, I have tried it so that I could write about it.
Right.
I've never felt anything so painful in my entire life until I got my tattoo, of course. But Angie, does it get easy? Like I heard that the more you do it, the less painful it gets.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, it does. The hair gets softer, it grows in thinner. It definitely, and it matters where you go and what kind of wax they use.
Yeah.
So there's this whole, I mean, you gotta.
Yeah.
Well,
I
and if you
find it
ask, like,
just-
if you're gonna do one for the first time and you call a reputable place, tell them it's your first time, and they'll put you with someone who's very good. That's, I told them it was my first time, and they're like, oh, we'll put you with so and so, and she was great, and she would tell me everything she was doing, and she's like, okay, here's the money shot, meaning like she prepared me of like she's like, this is the one. But yeah, so just if you're thinking about doing any kind of waxing and you call a place that does that, tell them it's your first time, and they'll put you with somebody who is experienced.
Okay. And if waxing is just outside of your comfort zone, that does not mean that you're not a sexually confident person. It just means that you know your pain threshold and what you're willing to endure. I find that just shaving it down to like a burr haircut level where it doesn't get, if you shave it all the way to the skin, it's going to get incredibly itchy in the next 2 days. But if you just keep it a really low burr haircut type, you feel the sensations, but you don't have to go through the pain. So there you go. They got a bonus session today on.
We covered a lot of ground.
Sex hygiene. I know we start out with kissing in the back of school buses and behind lockers and all that kind of stuff, and we wind up with trimming your grass and Brazilian waxes. There you go. So you
go. You never know what you're going to get with us.
Exactly. You can't say that you didn't get your money's worth out of this episode since you're not paying for it. We are enjoying the Summer Living series. We hope that you are too. Join us next time as we talk about exploring like lovers do. We love you for listening.
And we thank you
for tapping on us.